Okay, Shannon and Tamika, I gotcha. We'll see if anybody else joins us. We've got several here, so you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, so can I.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Oh, that was loud, sorry. Good heavens. Note to self, get here at 5:30 to get logged into everything. Okay, I will try to remember that. Okay, did any of you guys work with Excel Module 1 this week?
I did.
How did that go?
I finished them all.
Okay. Okay. Questions about any of that?
One, I turned it in twice, but I kept giving a 0 off 15. I was really confused. Because when I opened it back up, it was exactly as it should have been.
Okay, okay. So one of the students here submitted twice, got a 0 both times. My bet is the sheet name was not typed in correctly.
Okay.
That is usually what happens with that. So typically what I do with that, for those of you at home and here, if that happens, just send me a text and say, hey, I got a 0. I can clear out that attempt, and that way you'll still have your 3 attempts left. Because that is an issue. I mean, you get the file name right to be able to upload it, but even if you have a transposed letter, or you've added an S instead of leaving the S off, or vice versa, that can cause the issues. So that is probably what happened there. I didn't hear from any of you with testing issues, so I'm assuming those of you got through that okay. I have now started my third class for this semester. So I have your class and I have 2 online classes, and I'm working in my business more than 40 hours a week. So keeping up with everything is a little crazy right now. But as I told someone else, with 2 children in college right now, I guess that's what a lot of parents do, is pick up a second and third job anyway. So I'm just looking at it as that right now. But I've got to get in and look at grades and make sure that everything that's being updated or submitted from Cengage to Blackboard is correct, and adjusting scores for things like capitalizing that gets counted off for not being capitalized when in fact it truly is capitalized. And anytime you have you get counted off for things like that, it is typically because it's 2 or 3 words and a space in between was not set to be capitalized, even though the space doesn't need to be capitalized. Some people, they don't get the whole word selected or the group of words selected when they capitalize, or bold or underline or whatever you're doing to it. So that's where you get a lot of mistakes where it looks like everything's capitalized, it looks all good, but it's not. That's where Sam counts off. So things like that, I try to go in and adjust scoring for. You probably also noticed in the module 2 of Word, and you'll probably notice that as we start some of the Excel stuff, spelling issues are a big place where people get counted off. From and form, get those things transposed. And I will tell you, I totally understand that this is not a proofreading class. And so I try to take into account if it's just a spelling issue. Sometimes I find them, sometimes I don't find them, but I can definitely tell that you've typed in the paragraph or you've typed in what's supposed to be in the cell. And it's just counting you off for that. So I try to go in and adjust those, but when I have 3 classes to do, it takes me a little longer than I would like for it to. So anyway, that is about the grading part. So all right, let me get into not that. Okay, so I know a couple of you guys have not gotten through the Excel 1 textbook project or the Excel 1 projects. So I'm going to, I'll go through and kind of hit some of the highlights for that. If you have a headache the last day or two, today was really bad for me. I'm guessing it's the weather. So I did take something to knock it out. So hopefully it won't be too much of an issue for me tonight, but okay. So the first project, you're just creating a worksheet and then you're creating a chart to go with it. So what we typically do in Excel is we create the worksheet to begin with, and none of it is formatted, which I find it very difficult to kind of read through and make sure things are spelled correctly or the correct data is put in there. But then the second half, we format it, so it makes it a lot easier to read. But I will say a lot of the formatting is the same from one project to the next, but you will see some changes throughout each of the modules, but a lot of them you'll learn some skills in the first couple that you'll use in modules 2 and 3, but you'll also learn new formatting in all of them as well. So I'll kind of skip over the ones that we've gone through before. All right, where is my thing? Here we go. All right, I got to get back to my Zoom people, and I got to share my screen with them. Oh, and I need to turn this one on for you guys. Jonathan, you're having an issue. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, go back. Okay, see that green, I'm sorry, yellow bar? You have to click enable editing. And that way it'll let you do a save as. And then you just hit browse. And then right now it's saving to your downloads, which I wouldn't recommend saving to. You can go into documents. No, you need to scroll down and click on the network one, because you should be able to see your student number somewhere. Is it under this PC? Where? Or do they make us save to my drive or OneDrive? Scroll back up. Up over on this one. Or down. Is this yours? I don't think so. I think that's. Double click on that. See. Yeah. That's what we'll do. You may just want to save in the OneDrive. Because when you log in through this, you logged into OneDrive, so it should be there whenever you get back in. So, but what you want to do, if you click on your browser there, okay, so you can click and drag across this and copy that. and then go back to your Excel spreadsheet. And then click there where the file name is, and then just paste over that. And then save it. So now when you get everything completed, you'll be able to save that or to save it and then submit that file name, and it should be correct. Okay? All right, so what I've done here is, this is the completed project minus formatting stuff. Oops, I guess I need to. So what you need to know about the Excel window, I'll just go over this real quick for you. You still have the title bar at the top, which my Zoom stuff is showing over right now. Your title bar also has the quick access toolbar. Like we've seen before, your minimize, maximize, restore stuff that you see over here. Sorry, these people, they don't want to see the side of me. Hold on, guys. I'm moving you around. Okay, there you go. Now you get to see my beautiful smiling face, right? Toolbars or ribbon tab buttons. Gosh, I haven't called it toolbars for a long time. So we still have our tabs here. What you'll notice different in the home tab is a lot of this related to the Excel application. You'll still have insert, which is where you'll do your pictures, your charts. The page layout is how your things are going to look as far as your margins and things like that. The rest of these we don't use a whole lot. The view, if you need to change the views, you'll go in there. The formula bar is between the ribbon area and your column heading row, I guess column heading row. So this row right here is what's called your formula bar. It does include the name box, but technically the formula bar is just this section here where you can type in, but they call the whole thing the formula bar. And I point that out because in your view part, if you are using a computer that doesn't have your formula bar showing and you click the view button, the formula bar check mark will be gone. So you just, that's why I'm telling you, if you don't see it, go to your view button or your view tab and then choose the check mark there so you can see that. The rest of your workspace here, columns are identified by letters, rows are identified by numbers. The intersection of a row and a column, or a column and a row, each of the rectangles are called cells. You may or may not be familiar with that term. The active cell is the one that has a green rectangle around it. The green rectangle also will have in the lower right-hand corner a small green square. That is what that's called the fill handle, and we will be using that quite a bit in working with different things that we do in Excel. So when you are referring to a specific cell, you will call it by the letter, the column letter, and then the row number. So you will say D2, or you will read in your textbook, go to cell D2, go to cell H7 or whatever. Right now I'm only seeing M, column N. So if I needed to go to cell T28, I don't see that on my screen. I can scroll down and move over. I can use my tab key or my arrow keys to go over, but you can also just come up here to your name box and I will type in T, I don't know, what is say 27, 28. And then I have to press my enter key. That will move my active cell to cell T28. Likewise, if you accidentally get way down here in Never Never Land and you're like, you can always come back up here and type in A1, press your enter key, and you'll come back to your stuff. You can also do Control Home on your keyboard, and that will take you to cell A1 also. You will also be see references to what is called a range of cells. A range of cells will be identified in your textbook as A1 colon C12. So whenever you are given a range reference, A1 through C12, this would be your range. So it doesn't mean A1 and C12. So some people think that whenever they're told to format a range of cells, A1 colon C12, they only get the first one and the last one that's listed there. And when you're working with a range, it starts at that first cell reference and it goes all the way to the second cell reference. So just keep that in mind if you're needing to do formatting or you're moving stuff to a specific range, copying a specific range. That's what it's referring to, and that's how you'll see it written in your textbook. The square that is located above the number 1 and to the left of column A, it has a half triangle or a half triangle. It has a triangle in there. If you click on that, that is your select all. That selects the entire workbook or the entire worksheet. I mean, past where you just have data put in. So you can see down here, where'd my mouse go? It doesn't just select through N19, it selects everything in the workbook. So if you have a workbook where you know you want every cell to be formatted with a bold formatting characteristic, you can select this and then use your bold command. And then whatever cell you type in will automatically be bolded for you since you've selected the whole worksheet and applied that format to. So that's just your select all. Sometimes it gets more than you need to deal with. Probably when you're working with smaller worksheets and you just need to deal with what you typed in, you can just select it. It's probably easy to do that for anything else. So just keep that in mind as you're working with doing any formatting. Down at the bottom of your screen, you will see your sheet tab names. I know those of you that have already worked with Excel are familiar with that. If you need to add sheets, you have the little plus sign here. If you need to get rid of a sheet because maybe you've added too many, you can right click and you'll see the delete option there. This is also where you'll see where you can rename it. And we'll work with some of these other things that some of them are kind of self-explanatory. Other ones we won't get into and you don't really need to know about them. Okay, so I'm going to delete this because I don't want this right now. The triangles that are to the left of your sheet tab, those will let you scroll through your different sheet tabs. When you get more than you can see in your section there on the status bar, that will let you scroll one direction or the other. You still have your scroll bars on the right-hand side and at the bottom. And then you also have your status bar down here below where your sheet tab and scroll bars are. So your status bar, if you're ever having difficulty entering information into a worksheet, look at the status bar and you'll see in that lower left-hand corner where it says ready. Ready means that your worksheet is able to accept data that you'll be putting in. If I have double clicked in a cell, whether it has data in it or it doesn't have data in it, you will see down there that it says edit. And notice that all of my stuff here on my toolbar are grayed out. So whether you think you've double clicked in a cell or not, if everything is grayed out, that's the issue, is that you're editing instead of in that ready status. So that will help you if you look down there at the status bar to figure that out. And then at the other end of the status bar are your views that you can change, and then the zoom. So we should be familiar with those. Okay. Any questions about your window? I like to go over that the first time that we get into a program, so people are kind of familiar with it. All right. Okay, the other thing that I need to let you know about is your worksheet that we're looking at right now. Your actual file is called a workbook. Your workbook can only have one worksheet in it, which is what we have right now. The reason they're referred to as a workbook is because you can have multiple sheets in your workbook. So right now we just have one sheet, but you can have 50, 100, 200 sheets in one Excel spreadsheet workbook. Okay. If you're opening a brand new from scratch when you're in Excel, the file name at the very top, where you can't see on mine right now, it will say workbook number 1 or workbook number 2, depending on how many you've opened up. So I like to let students know that, so they're not unsure about what that is whenever they see that. Okay, did I leave anything out here? Okay, a lot of these other things you've had in Word, but if there's anything that is not, you're not like, what is this on the window? Just let me know. All right, so those of you that have already worked through this, you'll recognize that I've got everything typed in there, but I've left out my months of the year. And I did that intentionally. So basically I skipped through the part where it says enter your title, enter your subtitle, and then you're ready to put in what are called your column headings. Our column headings are going to be our months of the year. This is our budget for the year. So we're estimating a 12-month budget. So how many of you have ever mistyped the word February or September or October? Yes, okay. So this is something that will help you. All you have to do is make sure you get 1 month typed in correctly, whether it's January or June, if you're doing a 6-month thing, or whatever you're starting with. So I get January typed in, it's spelled correctly, I'm good to go. This is where you're going to take your, I refer to this as the white plus sign, or the big white plus sign. you're gonna take the big white plus sign and you're gonna put it on that little green box that's in the right-hand corner that I told you earlier is called your fill handle. When you put the white plus sign on the green box, it turns into a little bitty black plus sign. Once you have the little bitty black plus sign, then you can click and drag and you will see the little screen tip that pops up that says the new month that I'm getting. And this is how you want to enter your months of the year. And then you don't get counted off for cell G3 is not spelled correctly, okay? And then you could do a copy here if you want to and paste it down here. You could also, depending on your how you kind of work, it may be easier as you're typing that first stuff in and then you get down here just to use your fill handle again. But since you already have them up there, you could do the copy and paste either way. That is your fill handle. You will use your fill handle a lot in here. So if those of you that did the project one already didn't use the fill handle when you could have, I apologize. I don't know that it tells us that information this early in the textbook, but I always like to tell people because it's just so much easier to do that than have to type it all in each time. Then they go in and they have you type in your row heading. Yeah, your row headings, so that they would have you type in all of this. Miscellaneous is the one that a lot of people have issues with. It should do a spell check for you, so make sure you check that out if you have that mistyped. I learned how to spell miscellaneous when I took accounting classes in high school, because you always had, of course, back then we had to write out everything. So you had a miscellaneous expense that you always had to put in your ledger, and you had that account that you had to always spell out. So I don't have any problems spelling it, but I do say it in my brain every time I'm typing it or writing it from when I learned it way back then. But if it's not something that you are used to, then it's one of those words that you sound it out and it sounds correct, but if you don't use it very much, it's easy to misspell. In your textbook, it does talk about putting in numbers. And you're like, yeah, we know how to put in numbers, but in Excel, your numbers include 1 through 9. It should include the 0 too, I don't know. Plus, minus, parentheses, commas. I got my short space glasses on. Diagonal, periods, dollar signs, a uppercase E and a lowercase e. And those are like exponential, something that I never have ever used. So if you have had a higher level math than I have, you may know what those mean. We don't use those, but those are all things that can be entered that will keep the data you've put in there referred to as a number in Excel. Okay. So the next part of this has you put in your numbers. And as you can see here in the spreadsheet, the first row increases as you go up, so you won't really be able to do a fill, but you'll notice the second one is all 100s. So there you could type in the first one, use that fill handle to fill it all the way over. And you'll find that with some of the expenses that you have down here also, so you don't have to enter each of those individually. In fact, 250. So technically you could take, I don't want to, let me make this a little bit smaller so I can see. So your rent, utilities, advertising, you could deselect the website and deselect the office supplies, but all the rest of those are, yeah, maybe we won't be able to do that. Well, you could take this group of them, fill it over, so you don't have to type those out every time. And the same thing with this one, as you, if you're having to type this, all of this in. And then where you see the zeros, you will need to type a 0 in. And the reason that you have to do that is because of the way that when we do formatting, it will make a difference in how that cell ends up being formatted. So you don't want to just hit a space. You do need to put a 0 in there if they tell you to put a 0 in there. Okay, so once you have all of your data typed in there, then you're ready to do to calculate sums, or the total amount that's in a row or a column. And this is very easy to do. And this is a way that you can check your data entry to make sure that you have entered all of the numbers correctly. So they, the other thing I will tell you while I'm thinking about this, Sam, you need to follow the directions specifically that are given, because, let me see, oh, let me get rid of these, because I got rid of the, I got rid of all the formatting, so I got rid of my auto sums, which is fine because I can show you guys how to do it. All right, so you need to follow your textbook through, because it tells you the first one, we're going to do an auto sum here of column B. So we're going to add the 12,000 plus the 100, which we can do that. We could just type it out there. You don't want to type in the totals. If I just typed in 12,100, this data in the cell right now, this is called a static number. So that number will, or that cell will always say 12,100. The beauty of learning how to use an Excel spreadsheet is, let's say that I've done this for 1 year, and let's say that the next year I expect the interest to be 150 and not 100. So I could copy my spreadsheet, use it again, but now if I'm using it again for my second year, notice that I've changed the 100 to 150, but because my total in B6 is a static number, it still stays at 12,100 instead of adjusting. So the reason that you want to make sure your totals are formulas is so that when you do need to make a change to one of these, it will automatically adjust the totals for you. So I'll get rid of this static number here. And if I do a sum, and we can just use auto sum, I think that's how they have you do this. Up here in the top right-hand corner of your home ribbon, you'll see an auto sum button. There is a drop-down arrow there. So you can do a sum, an average, you can count the numbers, max, min. We'll talk more about some of those later on. But if we just want to do a sum, if you click it one time, you will see that it puts a dashed line around the two cells that it's wanting to add up. That moving line is called a marquee. I don't know why, but that's what it's called. The marquee will stay there until you accept your sum function that's written there. So this is summing cells B4 through B5. And it's written with the colon in there because it's a range of cells, okay? So that is correct. I can either press my enter key or I could come back up here and click the auto sum button. So you now have cell B6 as a formula. This is technically a function, but so that if I now change this to 150, that B6 automatically is adjusted. So you want to have as many, as much as you can where you're having totals, you want them to be formulas instead of static numbers. It'll just make things, as we go on to some bigger ones, you'll just be like, wow, I can type one letter or one number differently. It changes the whole spreadsheet. So now that you have that one sum put in B6, you can use the fill handle and go over to, and this is where you have to be careful in your textbook. I think we just go over to M because they then have us learn how to do the column multiple rows at a time. Okay, as I'm flipping through my textbook here, there's a section here that talks about your source area and your destination area. They also refer to it as the copy area and the paste area. To me, it makes more sense to say source and destination. So basically what I've done when I took the information that was in B6, this is my source information or my source area. And as I take the fill handle and I copy it, these rest of these cells are my destination area. Okay. Probably don't really need to keep that in mind, but some people that just makes more sense to them. You might see that terminology used at other places in your textbook. So I kind of like to point that out for you. By using the fill handle, we have created what is called a relative reference. And I like to point that out in this first module because when we get into the third module, we work with something that's called absolute references, and they're a little bit different. So if you kind of start thinking what is a relative reference and you use that in modules 1 and 2, then when we hit the absolute references, hopefully you'll see enough difference that you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So what we've created here is what's called a relative reference. So we have in B6, the sum of B4 and B5. When we copied that over to C6, you'll see here in your formula bar that it changed. So it's now the sum of C4 and C5. And as you go across each column, those cell references change. So this is what's called a relative reference that we have set here. Anytime you use your fill handle to go across or down a column, across a row or down a column, you're creating relative references. The reference is relative to the row or column where you are pasting to. Okay, so it fluctuates. It's relative to where it is. So you can just kind of, as you work with these, you know, you can kind of go, okay, yeah, I see how that changes through each one of those. Okay, so where some students get in trouble with using the fill handle is they don't follow the directions in the textbook where it tells them to use their fill handle to go from B6 to M6, and they continue over to N6, which is 0 because there's nothing in 4 and 5 right now. So what they want you to do is use, you learn to do multiple cells at a time using the auto sum. So you would select these 3 cells, hold your control key down, and go to these 3 cells, or these however many cells that is, and then use your auto sum button. And I don't know why that didn't do that up there. Maybe because there's a 0 there. Okay. So that does allow you to do multiple at a time. I think I had that messed up. So what you need to notice is it asks you to do it the way I just showed you. But if you did the other way, it is the sum of, previously it was the sum of N4 and N5. The correct cell reference there should be the sum of B6 through M6. So it is adding all of these numbers up to get what is in N6. You're going to get the exact same number. The answer is going to be the same whichever way you do it. Sam is going to grade based on how they've asked you to do it in the textbook. Okay, so if you get counted off, if it says the range N4 through N6 has an error in one of the formulas, go back and look and see if you did the fill incorrectly. And that's usually what has happened, is it's just been done incorrectly. And you're probably supposed to have a total down here. You can do these the same way if you select all of them and use the auto sum button. It will auto sum all of those. And then this one should be follow this. So the more you work with it, the easier it'll be, and you'll be doing it just like I did. But that's how you're going to do the sums. So just make sure you pay attention to what range you're using to make your sums. Okay. Okay. Sure. Okay, so now we have, and again, if you're not someone that's had an accounting class, this may look a little foreign to you. If you've had accounting classes, some of these terms are going to make more sense to you. But we're working with a budget. We are going to be taking our total income and subtracting our expenses from that to get what's called our net down here. Okay. Subtraction seems to be a big issue for students in Excel. And it is all because of the way that the textbook words it. Okay. The textbook will ask you to it usually will say subtract B17 from B6. Okay, and so what happens a lot of times is, I'll just type it in down here. People will type in B17 minus B6 because that's how it's written in their textbook. Subtract B17 from B6. Is that what I typed? Subtract B17 from B6. Is that what my arithmetic that I have written down there says? No. My arithmetic says I'm going to take B17 and I'm going to subtract B6 from it. Right? So if I do this, I'm going to get a negative number. Okay. If I'm talking about income and expenses in my budget, I want to have a net income of a positive number, right? Okay, so you kind of have to use your clues like that when you're talking about subtraction. So what we need to do, and I wish they would write it in the way of how have I worded that before? Well, I don't think I've worded it before. What I typically show students is I'll write it up here, but I don't have a marker with me. So, but I tell students to write it out on a piece of paper and just look at what you learned in second grade or first grade when you first learned subtraction. You know, do B17 minus B6, put the numbers by it. Are you getting a positive number? Because you usually want to have a positive number in this situation. So then I have them not only write B17, B6, but write the numeric numbers by it. So what is it? 12,100 or be 2975 minus 12,100. And then you're automatically going, that's not how I want math to look. So then you can reverse it in the handwritten document that you have, and then it makes more sense. And I know people are like, how can subtraction be so difficult? It's totally the way that it's worded. And I wish they could come up with a better way to word it. But they always say subtract B17 from B6, and people just write that incorrectly. So then you would just have to come back and make your change here. Well, if I can type the right one. And then you'll see the positive number, and that's what you want to see. Once you have it in there correctly the first time, then you'll be able to use that fill handle to go all the way across. And again, I would have to double check column in or cell N19. Are we going all the way across, or are we supposed to do a sum of that? I don't remember. I probably should remember, but okay, it does have you go all the way to N19. So you can do it just like I did for that one. Okay, so that's the part of getting the data in there. And I know I had my data already typed in, but really you should only need to type in the first column, your title, subtitle. You can use your fill handle to do the month, and you should only have to type in these first column of numbers here minus the totals. Okay, and then you'll be able to use the fill handle. So there's not a whole lot of typing that goes in for this. So first part of that talks about font size and all that, which we talked about in the first one in Microsoft Word. One of the things that you'll notice differently about Excel, and we used styles. We talked about styles in Word, but we really didn't use a whole lot of different styles in Word. We used the footnote style. We changed the style to no spacing in the module 3. But other than that, we really didn't use a whole lot of styles. In Excel, you'll find that you have this gallery of different styles here that are preset set up. And you'll find that you use a lot of these predefined styles in Excel when you're doing your formatting. So just kind of pay attention to those. It does matter as far as the accent colors here, if you have the correct theme selected or the correct color selected from the different themes. So just make sure that you have that that is under, yeah, your page layout. So if they need you to change the theme, it'll be here. If they just want you to change the colors, you'll use the color option here. So if you are asked to use a accent one purple and yours is blue, then you know you need to make a change somewhere. Go back and read where maybe you missed something. So they're going to have you go to cell A1 and change this to a title style. I knew it was over here somewhere. So you'll select the title style and you'll see that it does change it to Calibri Light 18 point versus the Calibri 11 that we had before. So these are just predefined things. And I think it's probably a different font color, but I really can't. Yeah, it's the second text color instead of the black text color. So just make sure you follow along with the correct style. They also have you I think you do the second one to a okay, so they just have you change the font of the second one. And then you're going to bold, which you guys know how to bold, increase the font size, which you guys know how to do that. Change the font color. Okay. The next thing they're going to have you do, and you'll do this for this module, and I think module 2, is they have you select a range. Let me make this smaller so I can see all of it. So you're going to select the range A1 through N2. And what we want to do is we want to center this text across this whole, all of our columns that we have. But we're not just going to center it, we're going to merge these cells. So it's only going to be one cell and center the text all at the same time. So in our alignment section here, you see the merge and center. You can just click that button, and what it does is it makes this all one cell. You can't click in B1, you can't click in B1, C1, D1. It's all A1 right now, okay? So that's how you do a merge and center. They also have you do that with the second, your subtitle. So you do merge and center for that as well. Okay, now some people are like, well, why can't we do that all at the same time? Well, the reason you can't do that all at the same time is if I do a merge and center right now, it's going to merge rows 1 and 2 together, as well as all the columns. And so when you try to do that, you get a message that says, merging these cells will only keep the upper left value and it will discard the other values. So it kind of gives you a heads up like, are you sure you want to do this? So what it's going to do is it's going to keep what I have in A1, but what's in A2 is going to disappear. So you're like, okay, no, don't think I want to do that. So now I have to go back and redo the merge and center for those. But so you'll do that at least in the homework, and I think in module 2 some. In module 3 we do a little bit different. Okay, they do have you use a style for row 3, and you are going to use A3 through N3. Even though column A is not the months of the year, we still want to format that A3 the same as we do the rest in the row. And they have you use one of these, I think it's heading 1. So it's going to put in the blue line, underline at the bottom of those cells, changes your months to bigger, So you have to adjust your columns, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And then I think you also have to center that. And I kind of always skip over that. And then people are like, how come I got counted off on this? Yeah. So centering is not part of the heading 1 settings. So you have to go back and hit center. Whoops, it helps if I have the thing selected. So you'll have to go back and center this way. You will notice as you go through that, as you go through the Excel spreadsheets here, the top row of a section, and again, if you've had accounting class, this makes sense to you because you've done this before. So your top row, which identifies that yes, this is numeric or currency values, and your total row are going to be formatted with dollar signs. Okay, so they have you select the A through N and A17 through N17. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to have these selected here. I just want the total rows for right now, because we're going to apply a total style to these. And this, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself there. This is like you did in accounting too, where you have a single line that totals it and then a double line at the bottom to, so that's what you do. You see when you do the total cell style. The bottom row here, they'll have you use the accent, what is it? Accent 6 cell style. Again, the numbers aren't formatted yet, which drives me crazy because I'm just like, I need commas and dollar signs and cents and all of that, but they'll get there eventually. Then they have you do alternating rows. So you do A4 through N4, and then you can hold your control key down and you'll do A9 through N9, and then row 11, 13, and 15. Okay, and so they have you come up here and do 20% of your accent 6. So that's going to put it a pretty light green. And then you have the alternating. So you go back and get the white ones. And I don't remember if I'm already supposed to have done the total row yet, something else or not. So you'll just have to see, but you'll get the alternate ones, and then you do those at 40%. So they're going to be a little bit darker green. So you see that alternating color. So they have you do that. If you are not able to click and drag and hold your control key down and then click and drag and then click and drag and then click and drag, do them one at a time. Don't frustrate yourself by, I didn't get the right ones, I didn't get the right ones. Okay, just however you can do it, do it. Question?
On that. How come we weren't able to format it as a table versus that, doing it that way? I understand that the book gave us those instructions,
Yes.
but couldn't you achieve the same thing?
You
by
can
using the
achieve the same thing by doing a format as a table.
Mhm.
Where is that?
And I think it might be in view.
Oh, here, right here. Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, this would be much easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
To just take it and do it this way.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that the deal with that is I don't know that you can get one exactly the way that they have you do it this
Okay.
way, but for most purposes,
Okay,
just use the format as a table.
okay,
And then if you need to, like if I chose this, because I probably just have the whole thing here.
Mhm.
And if I do format as a table like this, okay, then this is what it would look like. And I'm like, okay, I really want my first row here to be more of a darker green or whatever. So you could, you can make your adjustments to that as you want to. But yes, for our purposes, we need to match what they want us to do in the textbook.
Okay.
But I'm totally with you. It'd be a lot easier to do it using the formatted table. So, and even if you chose the one that was this, then you just go back and edit them to match what you want. So the only the biggest difference when you do the table is you get these column headings here, which would kind of mess with some people's mind. Oh, I heard that. What is that? So, but yes,
okay.
I think for those of us that have used Excel, that would be better. Okay, so now we're going to format the numbers. And this is where some people struggle with this as well. And you'll do this in the next module too. So I probably won't spend much time doing formatting numbers. So your first row that's in a section, you want to format with the accounting style format, which is with the dollar sign up here. Okay. You also want to, yes, I am. I just used that crazy machine. Okay. So then your last row in a section, you would want to format with the dollar signs. Again, this is something that you can do all of them at the same time, or if you need to do just one row at a time, you can. So I'll get this row, and then this bottom row down here. So these all need to be formatted within the accounting style format. So I'll come up here and click the dollar sign. So that puts in dollar signs, commas, and 2 decimal places. Commas if needed, because some of them aren't going to be long enough to do that. All right. In module 2, you will have the numbers that are at the bottom, which I think we're going to be doing min, max, and average functions. That section is going to be formatted using currency instead of accounting style format. The biggest difference is the location of the dollar sign, and that's talked about in module 2, and I'll kind of point that out to you. But you may be thinking, okay, what's the difference between accounting and currency? Because accounting has the dollar sign, commas, decimal places. Why wouldn't currency have that too? It does. So the biggest difference is if I'll just take this bottom row here and show you. So right now, this is the accounting style. If I choose currency, I want you to notice where the dollar signs are located, and that took away the bolding that I had on that too. So the dollar signs for currency are floating dollar signs, and they're called floating dollar signs because if I make this column wider, the dollar sign floats with the number, stays with the number. The accounting style format uses what's called a fixed $sign. It is always fixed at the left edge of the cell. So you'll see that here in row 17. Okay, so that's the biggest difference between currency and accounting style. The other thing that they will have you do with the currency style is you typically will go in through the number dialog box launcher here. Currency may be selected, especially if you've already chosen it like I have, but sometimes you will be asked to leave the $sign off, so you don't want a $sign, but most of the time it is, they make you go in here to select that you want the negative numbers to be shown in parentheses instead of with a minus sign. Very rarely do they have you use the red numbers. So if you have any negative numbers, they want them in parentheses instead of their normal. So that's their way of making sure you go into the dialog box launcher and learn how to use that to move them around. So like I said, I'll talk more about that in module 2, but I know some of you may be moving on to that as we go through this. Okay. Adjusting the column widths. You can either take your mouse and click and drag like I did. You can double click and it will adjust to the widest that it needs to be for a column. You can, let me get up here where you can see my months. So all these months of the year are, you can't see them all because the columns are too small. I made column B a little bit smaller here. You can see, I refer to these as railroad tracks because that's what they look like when they're all together. But a few semesters ago, my students told me those are hashtags. And I'm like, oh yeah, for y'all, they are hashtags. But for this older generation that don't hashtag, it's either pound signs, number signs, or railroad tracks for me. So, but that just lets you know that that column isn't wide enough to see everything you need to see for the numeric values. It won't do that for alphabet data values, I guess. I don't know. Text values. It won't do that for text values. It only does that for numeric values. You can put your mouse up here at the top and you see the downward pointing black arrow. That will allow you to select multiple columns at a time. And then you can just put your mouse between the two columns, either any of them, it doesn't matter. If you do a double click, that will adjust all of the columns that have been selected to the widest that they need to be for the items that are in that column. You do have to kind of be careful about that on some of these. I don't remember if it's in this one or the next one, but they will tell you make column J 14.5 wide or 14.57 wide. And so you would have to use your mouse to get exactly on the 14.57 and then be able to deselect without moving it. Did you see mine move there? So if I go back here, this is not 14.57, it's 14.43. So for those of us that get frustrated by doing the mouse, to set your column width to a specific size, right click on the column heading and then go down to column width and you can type in 14.57 and it sets it for you. If you need to do multiple columns, like let's say I need to do column D, G, and H to a column width of 12, I can select those 3 different columns, holding down your control key to select the ones that aren't next to each other, and then change the column width that way. So you could also have these 3 selected, and if you want to move your mouse to what it needs to be, you can do that. Whatever works for you. Okay, there's multiple ways to do it, but just I think in this one they have you just do the double click so that they're the widest they need to be. Then it has you select a cell using the name box, and then there's a table in your textbook that shows you other ways to do to select cells, move around on your thing. Then they have you put in your pie chart. The first charts that we put in are really pretty simple charts. The most difficult thing for students in creating charts is selecting the correct data. Okay, we're using a pie chart because we are doing, let me see here. What is our range we're getting? A9 through A16. A9, that's not right, through, oh yeah, A9 through A16. Okay, so these are our expense headings, okay? And then we need to go down, we're gonna get the totals because we're creating a pie chart. So we want each slice of our pie to be what is their percent of the total or their slice of the total. So I have A9 through A16. And then I'll get over here where I can see the rest of this. You're gonna hold your control key down and you're gonna get in, oops, I forgot to do the comma style. I'll show you that here in just a second. N9 through N16, okay? Then you'll do insert, and you want a pie chart, so you can go right to the chart section and you'll see the pie, and you're gonna do a 3D pie chart. And so it creates a chart right there for you. It's going to cover up your data. So you will sometimes place the chart below the data. Most of the time though, you are going to put it into its own sheet. And so to do that, right after you've created it, you will see up here in your, this is called Chart Tools Design tab or Format tab. But you'll see in the Design tab, you have the option to move the chart location. And you'll do that, and then you're just gonna make it a new sheet. And right here, you can give it a sheet name. Oops, sorry, we were supposed to do a 2D pie chart, so we can redo that. So let me see here. Okay, so I'm going about this differently than they did, but same idea. This is going to be called monthly expense chart. And what you put here for the new sheet name, or the new sheet, is what's going to be the sheet name down at the bottom. So if you mistype or misspell here, then it will be misspelled down here. Okay, I think somewhere we were supposed to rename sheet 1, or maybe it'll tell us here in just a little bit. So if you have a mistake in your sheet, you can double click on the sheet name. You'll see that it puts it all in gray there. Then you can use your arrow keys to go where you want, or you can click with your mouse wherever you have a mistake. You can also do a right click and just rename. Okay. Okay, so since I set this to be the wrong chart, you also type a title in here. So you just click and drag over it and retype what it needs to be. But over here, actually, I think I'm gonna have to go up here to my design, and I'm going to have to change my chart type up here because I set it as a 3D chart and I need to do it as a 2D. Okay, so that's what it should look like. And then you'll change the chart title here. So, and I don't know. It looks like you have a legend that should be showing. Oh yeah, mine's at the bottom. but they may have you move that to the side. And you can do that over here. So let me scroll over. Okay, or I'll do this to get so we can see that. Here's your legend. And then if they want it on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, that's where it is in my picture. So I don't know. I don't know exactly where you're supposed to have it, but that's how you would move it around, is like that. There's also probably a place up here in your format or your design. Maybe, I don't know. It should be under format somewhere. You probably can find it somewhere in there. Where to move it around. Oh, so here's your legend. And then, yeah, if you format it, if you do the format selection, then it brings this task pane up over here where you can make changes to it. You will find in the next couple modules that we'll use this task pane a lot when we get to the chart section to make some changes to stuff. So, okay. What I did notice that I forgot to tell you. Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, I'm going to go back to that. So I'm going to go back to my sheet 1 tab. I forgot to show you guys how to format the rest of these. So we did the top rows and the bottom rows with the currency and the accounting, but you have to do the ones in the middle to a comma style so that it gives them all decimal places and commas if needed so that they're all lined up and look better. And I forgot that part. So select this one, you can hold your control key down. And then this is where a lot of people, they get B10 and N16 and they don't do anything in between. Comma style, very simple up here in your number section. Just gonna click the comma, it's them all in there. You'll notice where we had zeros, because we've set them now to a comma style, they are dashes. Okay, so if you don't put the zeros in there, you're not gonna get those dashes and that's gonna mess you up in grading stuff. Changing the sheet names, I showed you how to do that, but they also have you change the tab color. So that's if you right click, you can go down there. Sometimes they're specific and they want you to choose a specific accent color, probably one of these green ones. One of them, they just say, choose your shirt color or something like that. So obviously that's not going to be one that's graded, but some of them will be graded. So you need to make sure you get the correct one. And you'll see once you click off of the sheet 1, you'll see that the sheet 1 is now green. So if I set this one to, I'm going to use the standard color red. So you see how it pops out, you can see it a little bit better. Okay. What else do I need to tell you about that? Document properties, I usually don't mess with that, but some of you may have found out in one of the Word modules, if you didn't type that in there, it did count you off for that. So do make sure that you you do that, whatever they ask you to do in that section. So it does talk about printing. I don't normally have you guys print, but I do like to kind of show you. Typically in Excel, you're going to want to print in landscape view. Occasionally, this might be a graded portion. Typically, it's not. But if you get something that says it should be landscape, then you'll need to go in and make sure it's set to landscape in the page layout with your orientation. Okay. But if you're printing, notice I changed it over here and it still kept that setting when I went back to the document to look at it. You also might be asked to condense this all onto one page. So that would be under your scaling section. If you choose fit all columns on one page, it does get pretty tiny, but you can read it all. if you choose, if I go back to no scaling, and then if I choose fit sheet on one page, then it gets super itty bitty tiny. And I don't know why it does that, but it does. So you can also do a custom scaling so that you can fit it 1 page wide by 2 pages. Well, actually, let me do 2 pages wide by 1 page tall. Let me do no scaling first and get it back to there, and then do the custom scaling fit to that. And that still didn't work. So this is where it gets frustrating. You're like, what do I want? So obviously, and sometimes, honestly, when you put a code in there, it just, they just, that's one thing that I liked when I first started using Microsoft. Actually, I first learned in WordPerfect in 1995. I learned WordPerfect. WordPerfect had a reveal codes. You could go in and see where you had put a return or a bold or some, whatever you just screwed up here, and you could delete it. And Microsoft Word has a reveal codes, but I can't ever find what I need in it. So that was one thing I liked about WordPerfect way back in the day. But because sometimes you get stuff in there and you don't undo it, you just change it. So you don't remove the bold, you just add to it, and then you can't ever get that bold out of there or whatever. So so I don't know if that's what's going on here with this or not, but typically what I do when I don't get stuff to print is I'll go back and select what I want, and then I'll try to just print my selection, and then I may need to scale it. Again, I could do the custom scaling, and if I just adjust it to like 80%, then I can see, okay, I've got November, I just need a couple more columns. So I could go back and adjust and play with it that way to get what I want. So like I said, most of the time you're not going to need to print, but that's kind of how you can do some different things to work around that. The other thing they show you here is down here in the status bar. If you right click down there, you will see several check marks, but what you want to focus on is in the where it says average and sum, or average through sum. See, average, count, and sum have a check mark next to them. So if I select, just let's say September, down here on your status bar, it shows you the average, the count, and the sum of those cells that I have selected. Sometimes that's handy. Most of the time you're probably not ever going to use it, but if you do select a range and you're like, what is that down there? That's what you see. And you can, let's take the sum off, but maybe we want to count only the cells that have numerical values in them, and we want the minimum. So we could take these others off, and then when you click out of it, you have the numerical count and you have the minimum is 0. So you can adjust those. If there's something that you find that is very useful to you, you can adjust that down there in that section. The last part is correcting errors. And making some changes in there. And I kind of talked about that. You can double click in a cell. If you have a cell that has a function in it, or a formula in it, sometimes you may need to edit the formula, and it's just as easy to come up here to your formula bar and change it around in your formula bar as it is to double click in it and to go back in it and make a change. If you start making a change in something and then you're like, oh no, I wanted to leave that the way it was. you can always press your escape key. It clicks you out of it and nothing has been changed. Okay. What else did they talk about in that last? Oh yeah, clearing cells or clearing your entire spreadsheet. I don't know why you'd want to clear your entire spreadsheet. Just start with a new one. But you can, you know, if you have your whole spreadsheet selected, you can, let me go to the home ribbon here. Over here in the editing section, you can clear all, which will take everything away, text and all your formatting. You could just clear the contents, which would be what you've put in, you've typed in. If you clear your formats, that's going to get rid of all your green striping and dollar signs, decimal places, and things like that. So if you've gotten comments or you've put any hyperlinks, it does that, but we don't use comments in our part of doing Excel. But that's where you can go in and make some changes to clear out everything. Do not clear a cell by clicking in the cell and pressing the space bar. Okay, because it's not really clearing it. It's got the space bar in there. So it's still going to register as something in that cell. You can also have it selected, press your delete key, have it selected, Control X, you know, and whatever. Different things there. And always using the help is never very helpful to me. Okay. All right, so that is what we covered in module 1. And oops, let me go back out of here. And we'll do more of 2 and kind of get started with 3 next. And we're kind of just gonna play this a little bit. And like I said, we'll probably do tests the rest of the semester, just like we did, just to kind of help with our being behind a little bit. But I also think it was beneficial for you guys, for many of you, to do what we did last week. So, oops, let me go back here. So in module 2, you are going to be doing a salary report. So I will just tell you, a lot of what's going to be similar to what you just did is doing your data entry. You're going to be doing your subtitle and I'm sorry, your title and your subtitle the same way. There is a section in there called flash fill. I will tell you that try to do it right the first time, because sometimes if people don't get that done correctly the first time, it never counts it right in SAM. I'm not super concerned about you getting it exactly right, but I would like for you to try it because it is kind of a cool function to know how to do, but don't stress if it doesn't work correctly. Also, in order for it to work properly, you have to have the names of the employees spelled correctly and in the correct order. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind when you're using that flash fill. It's different than the fill handle. Okay. I will next week talk more about entering formulas. As far as you're not going to be using the sum to do them, because you're doing a salary report. You're going to be taking, you get paid this much an hour, you've worked this many hours, you're doing multiplication of that. This next one, the budget, is a very important one that you use formulas and not static text. Okay, so I'll talk more about that next time. and we'll learn different ways that we can put in functions and formulas. And we'll also use the functions average, min, and max. That's going to give us the average. Most of you guys know average. You add up everything, it's the middle. Min is going to be your lowest number in the column. Max is going to be the highest number in a column. But like I said, those sections are going to be formatted a little differently. Okay, and then the formatting is going to be a little bit different next time too. And for those of you that might be working ahead, there is a section on conditional formatting. That can be a little tricky for some students. So if you get to that part and you're going to work on that on your own, just try to go through that specifically with the conditional formatting. But I'll go over that next week with you as well. Yeah, so most of the formatting that you do, it's going to be similar to what we did as far as applying cell styles. We will have dates on this one, so you have to format that. We don't do percents until the next, no, we do percents in this one. But on this one, you will have to make sure you format the ones as a counting number, and make sure you format the other ones with that currency style that I kind of talked about. So you'll be able to do most of module 2, and even do the formatting part of it. Even if you don't do the calculation part, you can get most of the formatting and stuff done. And then once we get the calculations put in, it'll just fill it all in. But don't stress about that. But if you want to work ahead and get some of it done, feel free to do that and see what you can get done. Okay. All right. We'll stop for now, but I just kind of want to try to give you a little heads up on module 2. If you guys want to stay and work for a little while, I'll be around. If you want to get up and walk around and get some energy in you, or go get a snack or whatever, you can do that and come back. If you're ready to just go home and take a nap, you can go home and take a nap. I will be here working for a while because I need to do some grading and updating stuff. So I'll be around. If you need to stay, you can. Shannon and Tamika, if you guys are ready to head out, you can do that, and I will see you guys next week. And hopefully I'll do a better job of getting here on a little bit earlier. I was a little late tonight. It's hard for me to sometimes get out of the shop and get away from my family, and I had a daughter come home from college tonight, and so like, just let me go. So I'll try to do better at getting my 30 minutes of logging in done before 6 o'clock next week. So, all right, I will see you guys next week. If Tamika, what you need?
Nothing. I was just saying, have a good night. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. You guys are ready to take off? You can. If you need anything, holler at me. Call me, text me.
I did email you about the project 1 thing. I tried resubmitting it, but I'm getting what I thought I resolved everything after we had that talk.
Okay.
But I guess it's still 1 to 0, so I don't know if maybe.
Yeah. Let
might be a
me
format that I
let me
did
clear.
wrong.
Yeah. Well, were you able to submit it again? Did I leave it up till tonight?
Yeah, but I already did that 3rd one
Okay.
after
Okay.
the first 2.
Well, I
saying no.
can clear out the first 2.
Okay, and then I'll try to see if I missed a step or something. I don't
Okay.
know what did
I can
wrong.
take a look at it too.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then
just
kind of
let
get
me
back
know
with you.
what kind of what happened, because I was like, I don't know. what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Because it looks the
That's
same. So I was
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me end this.